Myredbook.com, Republican felon, sex trafficker, solicitor of sex trafficking, sexual assaulter, solicitor of sexual assault, rapist, solicitor of rape, assaulter, solicitor of assaulting, attacker, solicitor of attacking, unwanted stalker, solicitor of stalking, unwanted cyber stalker, solicitor of cyber stalking, wannabe black hat hacker, solicitor of black hat hacking, solicitor of murder, attempted murder, 422 PC death threat maker, briber, solicitor of bribery, blackmailer, solicitor of blackmail, extortionist, solicitor of extortion, solicitor of kickback providing, kickback provider, solicitor of kickback receiving, kickback receiver, obstructer of justice, witness intimidator, ex-mafia member, in quotes, Glen Chapel, 2838 Concord Lane, Santa Clara, California, 95051. 2838 Concord Lane, Santa Clara, California, 95051. 408 247 5330, 408 247 5330, 408 606 0620, 408 606 0620. Turned off the internet this morning for a few hours, or this morning and this afternoon for a few hours. On top of that, it seems to be the case that he has contacted my phone company and is messing with my phone. The phone company told me that they had changed my phone number 2 or 3 times. When you go into phone info and look at the phone number that I had like 48 hours ago is still there. When you call out, the phone number that I had 48 hours ago still shows up on other phone numbers, with other phone numbers when you call them. The last phone call I made to the phone company, I spoke to someone who claimed to be a female supervisor. I do believe she was in the presence of her male colleagues. When I asked her if myredbook.com, Republican felon, etc., ex-mafia member Glen Chapel had been calling them, she answered in the affirmative. I do have that recorded. When I asked her if myredbook.com, Republican felon, etc., Glen Chapel had been bribing them, she also answered in the affirmative. So anyway, moving on, I did some research on anthrax, of course, and on some sites it says that you can be hit with anthrax over the course of several months and not end up losing your life. On one site, it said the survival rate for getting hit with anthrax is 55%. And of course, there were other sites that said if you get hit with anthrax, it's fatal. So who knows? But in the last 2 nights, I've gotten 7 hours of sleep and then 6 hours of sleep, which is kind of monumental for me at this point. And I'm almost done packing up all my stuff, ready to leave. Like I said, it seems like myredbook.com, Republican felons and ex-mafia members, etc., Glen and Greg Chapel are doing their darndest to make sure that I can't leave. And something that I wanted to talk about. I've been diagnosed with 2 forms of psoriasis: internal psoriasis, asthma, fibroids, ovarian lesions, migraines, and psoriatic arthritis. And part of me just wonders if the inverse psoriasis that I supposedly have couldn't just be like redness from sweat. Not that I can exercise at this point in my life, or ride a bike or get on skates or rollerblades or ice skates or anything, but I still am capable of sweating. So I have to wonder seriously if that can't just be the result of sweat. And what happens if you don't treat topical psoriasis? Like, I'm curious, does it really do long-term damage if you don't treat it? And the thought has crossed my mind, even though, like, it might seem crazy, that the diagnosis of psoriatic arthritis could be a way to partially explain the criminal act that took place March 24th, 2017. The criminal act which landed me in the hospital for 5 days, which ended with me having an intermedullary rod put in my femur. The femur on my formerly dominant right leg. The right leg that I used primarily as goalkeeper playing soccer. You know, the right leg that enabled me to put the soccer ball at my teammates' feet or close to their feet from the goal. The radiologist that wrote the post-op report from that incident, if you want to call it that, he lived in Los Altos. I don't know if he still lives there. But the Myredbook.com Republican felon, etc., Herbert family had a home in Los Altos, 94022. So it's not that big of a stretch to think that the radiologist could know or could have known the Myredbook.com Republican mob Herbert family members, like at George W. Herbert on Twitter, or George W. Herbert at Scotch Ferry on Twitter, or Lee Thompson Herbert. And Myredbook.com Republican felon, perjurer, suborner, perjury, solicitor of perjury, RAPIST, solicitor of RAPE, probable, well, not probable, child, MOLESTER, solicitor of child, MOLESTATION, stalker, solicitor of stalking, cyber stalker, solicitor of cyber stalking, etc. Richard Lyon Herbert, LYON, L as in light bulb, Y as in yellow, O as in orange, N as in nut. Oceanside, Monterey, Seaside, La Jolla, Los Altos, Gilroy, Richard Lyon Herbert, and I believe Elizabethtown, Pennsylvania. Yeah, and you know, my current rheumatologist attended the same university as Myredbook.com Republican felon, pretending to be a doctor, is actually corrupt DOJ Ari Kriegsman. And that does make me feel a little uncomfortable. Unfortunately, with my medical plan, there are only like 5 or 6 rheumatologists. And while this guy seems to have been comprehensive in, you know, looking thoroughly at my medical records and stuff, I'm not convinced that he doesn't know Myredbook.com Republican felon pretending to be a doctor is actually corrupt DOJ Ari Kriegsman. You know, of course, corrupt DOJ pretending to be a doctor is going to ingratiate themselves with doctors. He was Myredbook.com Republican felon, etc. Ari Kriegsman was at Santa Clara Valley Medical Center, and doctors do attend like conferences and things together. Not to mention, myredbook.com, Republican felon, etc., pretending to be a doctor is actually corrupt DOJ Ari Kriegsman. As DOJ, he's going to ingratiate himself with all kinds of medical professionals. So it's definitely not beyond the realm of possibility that the two know one another. I already know that myredbook.com, Republican felon pretending to be a doctor is actually corrupt DOJ Ari Kriegsman. Definitely knows the myredbook.com, Republican felon, etc., mob Herbert family members. And he definitely knows myredbook.com, Republican felon, sex trafficker, solicitor of sex trafficking, sexual assaulter, solicitor of sexual assault, rapist, solicitor of rape, assaulter, solicitor of assault, attacker, solicitor of attack, unwanted stalker, solicitor of stalking, unwanted cyber stalker, solicitor of cyber stalking, perjurer, suborner of perjury, solicitor of perjury, libel writer, solicitor of libel writing, slanderer, solicitor of slandering, solicitor of murder, attempted murder, wannabe black hat hacker, solicitor of black hat hacking, obstructer of justice, witness intimidator, and ex-mafia member, in quotes, Glen Chapel, 2838 Concord Lane, Santa Clara, California, 95051, 408-247-5330, 408-247-5330, 408-500-7328, 408-500-7328. When I went to one of my first appointments with this rheumatologist, I asked him point blank what it was like to attend that university, the same university as myredbook.com, Republican pretending to be a doctor is actually corrupt DOJ Ari Kriegsman. I didn't pull any punches. And I suspect that he knew what I was driving at. His answer was, it was very cold. So if in fact they do know one another, my rheumatologist and myredbook.com, Republican felon pretending to be a doctor is actually corrupt DOJ Ari Kriegsman, I'm left asking the question if my rheumatologist can be objective. And all this stuff plays into what I do next with my life. And this is where I'm leaving off on this video.